One, and we're live. Hey, Heroic Fatherhood, good afternoon. What a beautiful afternoon it is. It is another in the ongoing series of Dads Making a Difference. I'm doing this interview series with these amazing dad bloggers in the run-up to the Dad 2.0 conference, shining a light on the difference that men who are out sharing their stories about being dads, about being fathers, how it's affecting them in the way that they share their story, shining a light on some of the struggles that dads have, and just really talking also about empowering dads, right? About like finding new ways to look at stuff, because fatherhood's super hard. It can be this massive challenge, and that we're kind of all in it together. There may not be a right way, and I'm super excited because sharing the screen on camera left for you is my friend Brandon Handley of Fatherhood for the Rest of Us. Good afternoon, Brandon.
Hey, Charlie, how you doing today? Thanks for having me.
Oh, you know what? It's my pleasure. And where are you in the world today?
Well, today I am in Denver, Colorado, which is not the norm. Usually I am out in Raleigh, North Carolina, Charlie.
Look at that. It's two beautiful places, and it's amazing. Thank God for technology, right? Like we get to be able to share this screen and do the whole thing.
Yeah, man. No, absolutely. I think that it's also just fun because you get on a plane, there's like, I don't know how, it was filled up, right? A couple hundred people in there, 100 years ago, man, not even happening. I just started, right? Like, I mean, 100 years ago, this could have been like the work of the devil.
Yeah.
Getting up there and flying around.
Absolutely. And the idea that two people could be on sharing a camera in different parts of a country and speaking to each other live, that's new in the last decade. That's new in the last decade. We're
the Jetsons, Charlie. We're the Jetsons.
Ruh-roh. I'll be Astro because that's the way I feel like most days.
Right on.
Excellent. So, Brandon, why don't you take a couple of minutes, just take a minute or two and tell us about your life. Tell us about who you are. Tell us about your family situation, and give us a little intro on Brandon's life.
Sure. Thanks, Charlie. Well, right now I run a Facebook group and a podcast called Fatherhood for the Rest of Us. I've got two young boys, Finnegan and Liam, ages 5 and 8. They're both full. We were just talking a little bit before. They are full on boy. Like, there's boogers, there's spit. We were talking a little bit about jujitsu. They're literally licking the faces of other people, and it's not encouraged, but it's happening, right? And that's just straight boy stuff. I'm married, been married now, like 7 years?
Mm-hmm.
No, yeah, about that, right? Been married about 7, but my wife and I have known each other since 1999, so it's like 20 years or so, give or take 20 years. And I'm always entertained. Like our first date was like Fight Club, and when you're a girl wants to go to Fight Club, you're kind of in good shape right there. We come back down. We're in the Raleigh, North Carolina area from outside of Philadelphia area, and we moved that way to raise our boys in like the best atmosphere possible. And we're your prototypical family with a 2.5. We've got our dog Sophie, a nice little yard, and I used to always like kind of rail against the suburbs, but we're in a really great community, man, to be raising kids. And so I really feel like we're just in a good place. And the whole Fatherhood for the Rest of Us thing, the podcast started just with me trying to pick a niche and trying to find something that could keep and pique my interest longer than 6 months. And to be honest with you, when I went through it all, I had to say to myself, I was like, fatherhood is something that I love. I didn't grow up with a father. You and I had that conversation as well. It's just like there was something missing in my life, and it means so much to me to be a father to these boys, to be a good husband. I never, saw like an amazing relationship with my mom, and so to try and figure that out, those challenges, and bring that out and share that with other men, and not even necessarily to be so vulnerable with it, like in the groups and the podcasts. It's just to be honest. And share what's going on, and that encourages other men to just kind of step out of their own shadows a little bit, or I encourage them to celebrate often, just kind of all the awesome things that are going on with fatherhood. I guess that's kind of it, Charlie.
Yeah. Oh God, so much great stuff there. I was like, ooh, we can talk about that. Oh wait, we can talk about that. Wait, there's more stuff.
I'm just like Hansel and Gretel, right? I'm just dropping like a little breadcrumbs. Go wherever you need to go, man.
Yeah. So what you should know is that, fatherhood for the rest of us, Brandon is prolific. He's excited. He does a ton of video like I do. You should definitely check him out. I love that you were talking about having boys and like they're licking stuff and there's boogers and there's everything else. And I grew up in a house full of that. We were talking before that now that I have a daughter and son, I don't have that like knock down, drag out two boys in the house. So I've taken on, for my son, I've taken on the older brother role. So I knock him down and wrestle with him. But the thing I didn't get to share with you, Brandon, is my problem is my son at 14 is now 6 feet tall, size 14 feet, and he's a varsity water polo player. So I'm in trouble. Let me just put it this way. There's problems in my future because he's going to take me down.
Hey, look, you got then keep getting them in now, Charlie. You got to get them in now. But
get the links in while you can.
It's awesome. They keep telling us that our boys are going to be like 6 foot change. Yeah. And I'm only 5'6", 5'7" myself, and so I'm just looking forward to them giving me piggyback rides and stuff like that, and just being able to do all that fun stuff. Like see over stuff. That'll be cool.
Yeah, I want to jump in. Something I love that you shared, right? Like there's a couple of different ways to go when you notice there's a gap of something in your world, right? Like whether it's an education gap or an understanding gap or this, that, and the other thing. You'd shared that you didn't grow up with a father, and I shared that I didn't feel all that well connected to my dad because of some circumstances. And there was just the way that it was. And there's just a couple of different ways as you can either live with and be sort of at the effect of, or have it be like, well, I didn't have that in my life. And so that's going to impact, I'm just not going to be that guy. Or you can lean in and go, I didn't have that, but I want to be that for someone else. I want to be that, it's like, I didn't have something, there was a gap for me. Like I didn't have a dad in my life. So I want to make sure I'm a good dad for my kids. Or, I didn't, there were things that were like, I didn't understand growing up as a young man, or I didn't feel like I would have benefited so much from having more mentorship, more connection with my dad. So I want to make sure that I lean into that, and I'm going to swing in and make some big mistakes. But it seems like there's this, it's this really awesome work to be able to do, to be able to just lean in and be there and make it up on the fly while you're going along.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, there's a lot to be said for making it up on the fly. And there's a lot, like you said, when you notice the void, and the certain aspects of voids in your own life, and I think we have an opportunity, like you're saying, is to kind of shy away from it and just kind of let things go, or to take. I think the big thing with you and I in our dialogue is to be intentional, to be fully purposeful in everything that's going on that we're doing, and to be cognizant of like I'll hear my kids talk and I'll hear them say something. I'm like, man, that guy sounds like an asshole. Oops, sorry. But I'll be like, I was like, oh my God, that sounds exactly like me. I've got to adjust how I speak. Otherwise, my kids are going to go out and keep talking like that. But being aware that that's me, that I hear speaking. It's not them that I hear speaking. I hear myself. I hear the modeling that I'm doing. I'm like, that sounds really cold and distant, and that needs to be addressed, right? It doesn't sound like the compassionate, caring father that I'm trying to be, and I want my children to be compassionate and caring. And so I make those adjustments on myself, on my own. But before the podcast and before going into the podcast and doing it, I thought I was a pretty good dad. But then the more and more I looked at it, it's like there's so much more that I can be doing to be more purposeful, to be more intentional, to and line it all up at home. I think we were talking. Charlie, you were talking about there's a lot of times entrepreneurs get it right in either monetary, they nail down their business, but their families are a mess, or that's generally really what you see, right? Like sometimes like a business could be thriving and people are doing great, but their family life is suffering. Everything else is suffering behind it. And I kind of made a conscious decision to focus more on my family, and it's paying off in dividends. I think one of the things you were going to bring up was like, can I jump the gun a little bit? Is like, how have you seen the changes and how have you seen, have you seen changes with your family and how it's come along and with the work that you're doing? And yeah, almost immediately, one of the first instances that happened was my oldest son, Finn, came in and I was working in the office doing some stuff. I probably working on the podcast and just trying to figure some stuff out. And he came in and he started saying, "Hey, Dad, can I come in?" And he slowed down and goes, "Wait, I guess it'll have to wait till you're done working." I was like, "Oh no, absolutely not." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it was almost like an audible shift pop in like the atmosphere where I feel mentally like if I had buckled down and kept working on whatever was superfluous, really, at that moment, that it could have shifted his life. You know what I mean? We could have. So that immediate, when we talk about going out and what's your intent with this, and everybody's always like, if I could just change one life, and you know what? I've changed one immediately, and that was my own. All right, and then from there's my family. I've had people reach out to me, say they've been more intentional with parenting and fatherhood through the podcast, through the videos. But my wife and the relationship has gotten so much better. We focused on each other a lot more as well, not just. I think one of the things that we did a lot in the beginning was we focused on the kids. Specifically, more so than our own relationship, we kind of lost sight of the relationship. So, and this is something that we've also, drug back in and been like, we also need to pay attention to each other and take care of our relationship. So the relationship has gotten better. I've gotten healthier. It's been like when we talk about doing these things intentionally. It's like they just slowly and continue to build up on each other, and every day is honestly seems like a better day than yesterday.
Yeah. And I love around entrepreneurship, right? Like that the clock doesn't run out at 5 p.m. on entrepreneurship, and you'll end up finding yourself doing things, late at night, early in the morning. Sometimes when you're waiting for a kid's practice to get done, I've got older kids, you'll be working in the car or one thing or another. And one of the things I had to train myself to is I'm not very good at quickly shifting from one thing to the next. And if I ever try and do two things at once, guaranteed I will do neither very well,
sure.
Which can be super frustrating for both me and the people around me.
Right.
So I don't transition from one thing to another very quickly. So I, like you were talking about, like being interrupted, by your son, and I've had that happen. It often happens with my son. Is he'll come and he'll tap me on the shoulder and he's got, "Dad, I want to do this," and when I'm obviously right in the middle of something else.
Right.
And one of the things I've really had to work on is like stopping and don't do anything until I take a deep breath.
Yeah.
and it can be either, ask, in the moment of like, can this wait? Can what I'm doing wait to go be with him? Or do I need to make a request of him to see if I can do it in a few minutes? Hey, I'm right in the middle of something right now. I need about 5 minutes. Can I do this in 5 minutes? Or, you know what? I've got a moment now. Let me just put this aside. What can I do for you?
Right.
And I feel like there's this piece about presence. There was forever this was push on quality time, right? Like it was quality time where like the family's going to be together and they're going to go for a walk and there's going to be a stroller and everybody's going to be dressed beautifully and we're all going to do this. And then there was the quantity time, which is we're just going to like jam our families full of time.
Right.
I think neither is correct, because I think if you keep waiting for quality time, you're never going to get it. You're going to be disappointed that it's not quality time. And if you just try and jam, quantity time in, very often you're distracted by other things that are your issues, or technology, which is our biggest get in the way right now that's going on with families, or with your own issues, or with your issues with you and your wife. And it's this piece around like just being present when you're there and doing your best with the time that you do have, that you can spend with your kids.
Sure. No, absolutely. I agree. and over the past year, I focused a lot on the quality time. I had an interview with Jim. What is your last name? Jim. We'll find him. Jim. And I had a great interview, and he goes, "Listen, when you put that emphasis on the quality time, you're really you're setting yourself up for failure. Kind of like you said, you're kind of degrading it." And it's forced, right? My wife Meg would always be like, "It just feels forced." I'm like, we have to do this, right? We gotta go camping. We've gotta macrame at some point. We haven't done that, just all whatever kind of scouty thing you do.
There's an owl thing we have to knit.
right. We've got to do this.
We have to be creative.
And then there's the quantity time, which is funny. Like here I am actually. There's a course that I just finished up that I've been talking about. Where I got a glare. It's called the Kasdan method. This guy from Yale, 30 years. He's got a course called the ABCs of Parenting on Coursera. That's very well done. I just finished that up. I'm on my second book of his, and he talks about quantity time. And I really like this. Is that it's not like we've got to always be doing something. It's just like the quantity time is like kind of what builds those behaviors and what builds those long-term moments. Like dinner at the dinner table is one of those examples, right? I think we eat dinner at the dinner. I grew up eating dinner at the dinner table, and I have to do it. 90% of the time we have dinner at the dinner table, right? There's a couple off moments where we're like, all right, well, tonight we're just gonna. It's Friday night and the week's over. Sometimes just veg, right? Or like it's just been a long day. Can we just like my kids will be like, can we just eat peanut butter sandwiches at the counter? All right, dude. Yeah, cool. I'm not, it's not worth all this struggle, but also to build in like some routines. We were talking a little bit earlier about like Brazilian jiu-jitsu, right? So Saturdays, I like to go down with the boys on like open mat, and then we go to like the library. So a built-in routine like every week that kind of signals the end of the week or the beginning of the week. Church is probably another good one. And then like, but not to have it all so scheduled that like that everything feels forced and structured, that it's almost like a jail. Be like, what do you mean? Well, that's one demerit. You didn't make it over to jiu-jitsu on Wednesday, Thursday, and you gave me a lot of grief on Friday. You know what I mean? It's not all that, right? We have both the boys go, and I ask them every night, I'm like, do you want to go? Yeah. And if they want to go, they go. If one of them wants to go and the other one doesn't, we work it out. I don't want to force them into doing something that later they're going to look back at and be like, mad about. I don't know. But I didn't have that. You and I talk about it, right? Well, I didn't have that type of thing. So and we do try to build it as we go, but you also want to have those routines built. I really like the routines being built in part, and just that quantity time.
You talk about routines, and I often use them as like structures, right? Like structures that are consistent. And everything I've read about child development, and this includes right up through the teen years, is what really support kids is powerful structures, because it's the thing that causes them to ease in because they know what's predictable. Whether that's we sit down for dinner, there's weekly structures, there's daily structures. Since the kids were super young, one of the structures we've had in our house is we do a hot breakfast every morning. And I get up, and I'm up long before everybody else is. And there's just an entire routine that we do first thing in the morning. And we sit down to dinner, almost every night when we can. Right now we've got kids who have alternating sports schedules, so that can be a little bit difficult a couple of nights of the week.
Sure.
But this is where they learn to interact. This is where they learn to converse and to debate and to question, and they learn table manners, which are still important.
They're still a highly valued thing out there. People don't want to see you. Still trying to get my youngest one to eat with a fork all the time, but when we see him, he'll just grab handfuls of rice. I'm like, all right, well, that might fly in some places, but in the United States, buddy, we're gonna go. We need anytime you use a fork is a good time.
Yeah, it's a good time. And with my kids, they got super curious because we'll tell some story about Jamie, my wife, Jamie's, and my history, and the kids will be like, wait, what? Do Did you just say what I think you said? Or can you tell another story about that time? We haven't heard a lot about this time in your life.
Yeah.
And, it becomes that storytelling, and it's really creating that sort of, it's creating the, there's this moment, like I notice it when we're sitting at the table and suddenly it feels like there's this click where it's four really intimately connected people having a conversation. And it is so genuine and beautiful. Not like four competing forces, which I know it can feel like around dinner tables.
That's currently how we are. It's like a perfect storm always waiting to happen. At one time, there's going to be four voices going on at the same time. But I'm excited to get to the point where you get to those conversations where it all clicks down. But we have certainly set the baseline. We've set the foundation. We do some other fun things around the dinner table where we say, hey, what are you grateful for today? Go through some of that stuff. Try to instill some gratitude in them. We sing a goofy song for, we don't do grace, but I just try to get them to do something that shows that they're grateful for the food, even if they won't eat it. It's okay. You know what I mean? And that's that was a huge shift in the past year too, that at the dinner table was, trying to force your kids to eat everything at the dinner table type of thing, kind of went away. Just like, listen, all right, as long as you come to the table, hang out for a little bit, try a little bit of everything. And that's cool. That's all I can ask for right now. And I'm not going to ask for it.
Yeah, let me put it this way. Most of everything I've learned about parenting, I learned from my wife, just so we're clear. And she has this thing. She's also a kindergarten teacher. And just so you're clear, the same rules about managing kindergartners apply to teenagers and adults alike.
Fantastic.
Like, no joke.
Everything I learned in kindergarten.
Yeah, absolutely. I like to think it's really about managing men because it's like, I'm like, seriously.
Brains develop differently, man. It's okay.
I'm like, I am so simple. Just,
Sure.
Like, I watch her do it and I'm like, you do this with the kindergartners. That's how you're managing me. She's like, yeah, it works for both of you.
That's great.
But here's the funny part is like she has this thing in kindergarten. She calls it trying bites.
Yeah.
She's like, you do not have to like kale on the plate. You do not have to eat all of the kale, but you do have to have 2 trying bites.
Nice.
You try everything on the plate. You do not have to finish it, but you have to have trying bites. And you know what? It's brilliant. It gets kids to try stuff that they end up liking, and at least gives them an experience of having tried it. And as much as my daughter rails against the fact that we pretty much have a salad every night as part of the meal, it's either the meal or it's part of the meal. She's like,
how dare you?
Yeah, how dare you bring greens into my world? I have no idea. That's wrong.
Right.
And so she comes back and she goes, you know what? For as much as I dislike having salad so much, if I don't eat a salad about every 3 days, I think I'm going to go crazy until I get a salad.
Yeah.
To which you quietly go, parenting win.
Right. I mean, you're building it in. I railed against everything that I'm doing right now, 20 years ago. I'm like, I still remember. It's just so funny because you're like, I can't believe I'm eating like I was taught how to eat,
Yeah. You're like, wait, what is wrong? I don't understand.
Where did I learn this? Oh, growing up. This is everything I learned growing up.
Yeah, this is everything I learned growing up. So yeah, you've been trying on a number of new things. You said you just took that course. You're doing the Whole30 right now, the Whole30 diet right now. How's that going?
It's good, man. I was actually a little scared because I'm traveling, right? I have a bag. I'm traveling to dried fruits. There's some dried peaches, dried figs, dried everything. And I got really lucky right down the street from a Whole30 right now.
I had to put that up for Brock Lush, who's fun. It's like, dude, I'm rocking my hair for you, nice. Brock. Anything.
Nice.
Whatever. It's pretty much for any like I can get.
That's good. Hey, know thyself.
Right. Well, it's so funny because it's easy. It's easy as a dad when like work, relationship, parenting to just go like, whatever you've got, just bring her in. I'm eating whatever gets put in front of me. And food can be a distraction. Food can be a comfort. Food can be mindless.
Dude, listen, I had a downhill slope. I did a Whole30 last year, and that was great. And I think I had like almost no sugar for about 9 months. Right, a good portion of no sugar. I'm sure that like some snuck in there, but for some reason, like Halloween came around, and man, I was popping Snickers. I was and it's like I was getting mad at myself, which was funny, right? Like, because you're beating yourself up. You're like, I can't believe I'm eating all these Whoppers, and but then I also kind of took stock in myself. I was like, dude, you totally quit drinking this year, so have another Whopper. And but I'm glad, I'm really excited to be back off of the sugar, just because I know I'm doing my body good, right? I'm feeling good, man. What day is it? Today's the 9th. I'm 9 days in, and I feel great. Traveling well. Like I said, I'm right next to a Whole30. I was able to run over there, grab a whole bunch of freaking Laura bars and fruit, and they had a really nice paleo setup. I first time I think I've been into a Whole30 or Whole Foods with their food bar setup, and they had like a whole paleo section. So I had some pulled pork, had some pulled pineapple pork, and I mean, you can eat a lot of food. It's just you're not used to eating that food, so you've got to, just like anything else, you've got to build that muscle up. You're like, all right. Because last year when we did it, it was like eggs every day. Egg this, egg that. I mean, we were egged out by like the third or fourth day. And last year too. Meg's doing it with me too, and that having two people in the house doing it with you, I mean, together you're able to encourage each other, strengthen your relationship. We're strengthening our relationship this time. Last year, I don't know that we were strengthening. It was just like last year we didn't start off right. Like, you're not supposed to start off with a hangover. The first thing you wake up, you're like, man, I just want a bag of chips,
dude.
Right? But all you can have is like eggs and everything healthy. And so this year we're already off to a better start. We have knowledge of a lot more foods to eat. Like I do a lot of plantains and homemade guacamole. I do a ton of Brussels sprouts and grapes and mixed berries. So, I mean, just knowing that stuff and having it all set up, whereas last year was just kind of, we read about it, but we hadn't done it. So going through a second time, a lot easier. And I'm just excited to do it, man. I'm secretly doing a Whole30 ab challenge to see if I can get some abs in there, sneak that in there in like 30 days or so. And it's coming along, man. Nice. You know what?
It's so funny because, it's like, you talked about quitting drinking recently. Mm-hmm. I quit drinking about 18 months ago. You and I could do an entire podcast about that because that's a journey unto itself. I also started about the same time. You're doing a Whole30. I jumped onto a ketogenic diet, which I'm still doing to this day. And for those who aren't familiar with it, a ketogenic diet is where a majority of your calories come from fats. And secondarily, proteins and carbohydrates are your last, and all the carbohydrates are vegetable, for the most part, vegetable based. So you've given up your beans and your rice and your pastas and your breads.
No beans?
No beans, because beans are super high in carbs. Okay. And it has shifted the way I eat. It's shifted the way my body looks. It's shifted my energy. I have so much crazy energy. It's nuts. As it were.
It's gone straight to the top of the and it's nuts.
And it's nuts, and it's lots of nuts. And it is. It's like this journey, but I'll tell you what's really, like, it almost doesn't matter, right? Like, it almost doesn't matter. You could be doing the South Beach diet, you could be doing Atkins, you could be doing whatever. But it's about bringing that intentionality back to the table.
Right.
Like when I'll go into a market and be like, it's like, where are the ring dings at? That's an East Coast thing, ring dings, because they call them ding dongs on the West Coast. But right, like you go in, you're like, I'm ring dings. You walk in the aisle and you're like, what am I? Like, I'm not doing that, because there's nothing about that that's a good idea. I'm like, I'm gonna get some cheese and some chicken.
Right, you're like, it's not who I am now. I used to be the Twinkies guy.
Yeah. Now, I was a ring ding guy because I had the foil around them.
Ah, man, yeah, absolutely.
I was not a Twinkie guy either. No, it's all about the ring dings.
It was a close call with those Twinkies too. They almost let them go.
Yeah, see, that would have been a mistake. The no, but it's very funny because it's changed the way my family doesn't eat a ketogenic diet, or didn't when they started, but it has morphed its way into it. And I really had to own it because my wife was like, she's Italian and she's a cook. And she's like, don't ask me to give up my pasta and my bread. And I'm like, I said, I'm not going to. This is your choice. I've got to make some choices for myself. And it was really a challenge because for my wife, one of the ways that she demonstrates love is by cooking for others.
Yeah.
So we had to actually have a few conversations about that, where she'd be like, okay, I've made lasagna for dinner, vegetarian, like this big old fat lasagna. And I'm like, oh my God, that looks amazing. I love you. And I'm not going to be having that. I'm going to be over here having an avocado and chicken and cheese and nuts and, and whatever. And it actually took work. I mean, it took work, but we're talking, going right back to intentionality. Like, I knew the result that I wanted. I knew I wanted to get myself to a place. Like, I have every intention of being an athletic 80-year-old. Competitive athletic 80-year-old. And the only way to do that is to build that foundation now, not when I'm 55 or 60 or
your bones will break if you get too much muscle then, if you try it then, or something, right? Like, I mean,
or just be that much steeper to, like, inertia will be in the way. And as we know, if you are a dad over, say, 25, just know that the older you get, the faster your muscle tone goes away. And you have to, like, totally get after pushing iron to you got to push back against gravity.
I mean, I think the other thing we talked about, this has been my first year really of any adult activity, exercise. And so even that, I wouldn't be able to talk to the muscle tone coming or going because it was never there. So as far as I'm concerned, if it stays at all, then it's amazing. One of the things that I loved seeing doing the triathlons, did I think 3 last year, did 2 sprints and 1 like big one, like a 50 miler. But one of the things I loved seeing in that was I would go up it was in Asheville, and going up the hills on the back of the legs, they've got everybody's age written down there. And there was like a 70-year-old dude passing me going up the hill. I was like, oh my God, that's awesome. I want to be that guy. I tried having a conversation with him. He was saving his breath to get up the hill. So, but it was really interesting to see. I saw a lot of that. I saw a lot of people, 20, 30 years older than me, just pushing it. And they were all muscle and sinew. And it wasn't until I did the full triathlon, the 50-mile one, that I really developed a very huge appreciation for the people that do it competitively, because it's a lot of work goes into it, and a lot of dedication. There's a lot of sacrifice, family time sacrifice. At the same time as that, you get your family excited. I know in my space, when I did it for myself to become healthier, but also to show the kids that you don't just have to sit around, and show the kids that their dad's active, right? Again, talking about modeling behavior you want to see in your children. I was like, well, if I stay active, then, at some point, the kids, they want to go for bike rides. They want to go swimming. They want to do all these things that I'm doing simply because they see me doing it all the time. Yeah. And then, if they take it to the next level, that's awesome. But I developed a whole new appreciation, especially after that 50-mile one, because I was ready to die, dude. Like, that was tough. And there were people just cruising right through it. And it's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And for me, it's, wanting to keep up with my kids. I have some really active kids. We went to the mountains this past weekend, and, my kids and I snowboarded, all day and into night skiing. And,
Nice.
and it was super long day. It was, 3.5 hours of driving in each direction. It turned into be like this 18-hour epically, like it was,
Awesome.
it was like the Bataan death march at the end of it all. But the ability just to be on the mountain with them, and I don't expect to be able to go toe to toe with them,
Right.
but, to be able to participate with them and not just be the lodge dad,
Yeah.
with
Absolutely. I agree.
with the knit sweater and the pipe.
Yeah. Although that would be cool.
Some days it seems like a good idea.
Right. I mean, there's something to be said for that guy too. I'm sure he's got stories to tell.
Yes.
But agreed. Want to be able to keep up with them when they're out there and staying active. I want to be able to play with them. Or like, want to be able to go out there, and if they want to go, we'll play street hockey sometimes. We'll go out for like, 20 minutes, half hour, and just like hit the sticks for a little bit. And I want to be able to do that. I'm a lot more capable than I was before. And I think when we talked about the drinking thing, I want to hit on that. Just like one more thing, like I used to go to events or go do things, and then I'd be like, all right, well, now I want to go have some beers. It'd be like almost like going and doing something with the family was a chore, and my reward was going and sitting and having some beers or hanging out. And I'm just glad that I've made an adjustment that says that my reward is like kind of coming home and seeing everybody exhausted, or it isn't beer, it isn't wine. It's not just going home to do that. And the other shift, I mean, I think when we look at cutting out like the old habits or drinking and anything like that, and like I said, that was my reward for everything. I was like, well, right? And it's replacing those, and the thought processes I had. That was like, I remember like my first week or two. It took me a couple weeks before I didn't drink anymore. Like it wasn't like, all right, I'm gonna quit drinking. It was right after the Whole30, like I said, and like I quit for like a week or two at a time, and then like I get caught back up on the weekends and drink again, and I would lose. I was like, I'm making all this awesome progress, and then I'm losing 3 days, right? And in a number of ways, and so that was one way I approached it. I was like, I just want to keep a steady semblance of everything good, and I want to keep that going, right? And every time I get drinking, I take away some of that good stuff that I'm doing. And then the second part of it was like, I can drive whenever I want. I mean, honestly, like the first couple of drinks you have, you become a prisoner in your own house. You've literally just imprisoned. You're like, you can't do anything. Whereas like, somebody's like middle of the day or afternoon on a Saturday around 3, which, there's a couple beers pop by 3 on a Saturday, no questions asked. And the kids be like, can we go do this? No, we can't.
Yeah.
And now I can. Now I'd be like, all right, yeah, let's go to the park. Yeah, we can go do this. So I'm just really glad to make that shift into, and it also just speaks into, you hear self-mastery thrown out there a lot, but that's really kind of part of it. It's like, it no longer controls me. Like the drinking no longer is like what's running I am intentional and purposeful about my own life. I'm running my own life now. It's great.
Yeah, absolutely. All of what you said, I second. And, I was just getting exhausted about the cost of it. Not, there's the financial cost of it, but like there's the cost of like not sleeping well, right? Like, so I used to be a paramedic firefighter. And one of the things they taught us about the impacts of alcohol is when you, it takes 40 minutes to an hour to metabolize one drink. And when you go to sleep and you're under the influence of alcohol, you actually don't get into REM sleep, your actual rest, until you've metabolized all of the alcohol. So if you go to bed after 6 beers and you're feeling great and you're like, I'm super tired, I'm just going to bed, you have to spend the next 4 to 6 hours metabolizing that alcohol before you get into REM sleep. So it's no wonder you wake up 7 or 8 hours later super tired and with a headache and yeah. So hey, we could do this all day, but I know your time is super valuable. we will probably do this again on somebody's platform.
Sure.
But here's the thing. I want to know, how do people find out more about the awesome brand Handley, and what you're up to. What's the where should people find you, follow you, and do all the good stuff?
Thanks, Charlie. The easiest way is I'm on Facebook most of the time. Brandon G. Handley, if you want to reach out to me individually. I've got a private for fathers on Facebook group, Fatherhood for the Rest of Us, which I do a live just about every day in there, just kind of keeping the ongoing story. If I'm learning something new, like I said, this is the second book in a series. Looks like it's reflecting, but I kind of share some of what I'm learning in the books that I'm reading, experiences I'm having, and then there's other guys in there that are sharing experiences that are happening to them, and we chime in. And one of the questions I ask a question every time somebody enters into the Fatherhood for the Rest of Us group, and one of those questions is like, what are some of your challenges? So that somebody doesn't have to wait until they join the group and be afraid to share one of their challenges. And I shared anonymously. I shared anonymously with the group so that they get a feel for what's available to them, to see the group react, to see that happen, and they can own it or they don't have to. But again, Facebook group, and then the podcast Fatherhood for the Rest of Us, where you'll be featured on there shortly. And then there's just a number of interviews very similar to the conversation and dialogue you and I are having, and we delve a little bit deeper into fatherhood for that person and share that with everybody else.
Sweet.
And you'll find me at Dad 2.0.
And we'll be at 2.0 for all you bloggers who are checking in. Brock just just commented that he saw it had a huge impact, just even having the conversation and thoughts about drinking and alcohol. And it's a powerful conversation. And I was a 30+ year, probably close to a drink a day, if not more, drinker, and from a family of alcoholics. So there were lots of warning signs, and I just realized, not to whoop up on it too much, for like what the level of attention span, or like how much energy I put into how thinking about drinking. Like, hey, I'm with other people, I'm having a beer, I'm done. Should I have another beer? Are other people going to have another beer? Is it weird if I have another beer and other people don't? Or should I catch up? And is it too early to be having a drink? Should I have another? And you're like, where is all this? Like, why am I giving up all this incredibly powerful real estate up here?
Right. Well, I think the other part is it, Charlie, is it, how is it serving you? Right? How is this serving me? And that was another. Listen, I did it all. Nobody asked me to stop. Nobody said you got to stop.
Yeah.
I literally just said, this is not serving me anymore. This is not. Again, we talked about how has life at home and everything changed because of the podcast, because of my intentionality, because of the behaviors I want to model for my children. Do I want my kids to spend every weekend drinking, staring at the TV, eating pizza crumbs, and doing whatever? No.
Yeah.
And that's,
what are we modeling for them? Exactly.
And that for me, that was, I don't think that it's wrong. It's just a choice that I made, man. And I'm glad I did that.
Cool. What a great note to end this on. Find Brandon Handley, Fatherhood for the Rest of Us on Facebook. Brandon, I will see you in New Orleans. Thanks so much for taking your time today. If for any reason you can't find him, feel free to comment down below, and I'll make sure to connect you to Brandon in the links. And on behalf of Heroic Fatherhood, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Make sure to share this, because the guy to my left, dang, I knew it was going to do it that way. That guy right there is awesome. All right, you guys, have a great day. Brandon, thank you so much, sir.